Jamboard is one of my new favorite Google features, not because it's a super powerful program, but because it really solves a new need that virtual learning has presented with us. And that's how can we see student work when students aren't actually with us, but we need to be able to see that thought process. So for things like math assignments, Google Jamboard is going to be our saving grace, I think. So to get to Jamboard, you can either navigate to jamboard.google.com, or by clicking on the 9 dots, also known as the waffle, you can come down to Jamboard and click on that. So then if you have some jams, they will show up here. If you don't, you click down here, or to start a new one, you will also click down here on the orange plus sign. You're going to retitle it in the corner. So that part is just like any other Google program, but the difference is it comes up in a pop-up. So the program is very similar to a pared down version of Google Slides meets a whiteboard app. So in that respect, I think you and your students will find it pretty simple to use. So some features to be aware of, it's going to start off with just this select arrow. So that's the default anytime you log in. You've got your pen. So you can just click on that and start writing, but you can also, if you see this little arrow off to the side, you can change to a marker, a highlighter, or a brush. And then you've got 6 colors to choose from. So choose whatever you want. You'll notice that the color here changes so you always know what color you're using. You've got your eraser. Again, the select button. So your eraser, so you can see you kind of have, if you don't trace it perfectly, you do have to go back over it. It doesn't really let you change the size of the eraser like some other programs. I can also clear the frame. There's a sticky note feature, so this lets you write things and then it will show up. You can either have a transparent background or a colored background. Let's put high on green, and then you're going to click out of it. You can use this arrow to change the angle. If you're over it and you've got kind of like this plus sign with arrows, like a compass, that means that if you click on it, you can then move it around and drag it around. So using one of these 2 corners, you can drag it and make it bigger or smaller. And then you've got the snowman, so the 3 dots. You click on that, you can edit. So if you want to change what it says, if you want to make a copy, you can duplicate, you can delete it, or if you've got multiple things on the screen, you can order it. So you can move it in front of something or behind something. Add image is going to have similar features as far as resizing, bringing the order, duplicating, and so on. So you can upload an image from your computer. You can upload one from Google Drive if you've got photos in your photo folder, or you can do a Google image search. So let's say I want to search for an image of a dog, and you can also go in and you can filter by some different options. Let's take this dog. You'll notice it's going to put a blue box around the one I wanted, and then I'm going to click select. Then I can move it. So you'll notice now that I have the picture, it's now covering up my Post-it note. I can now order this and I can send it backward. So now I have high on top of that. You can add shapes. So just like with the pen, you'll see that there is a little arrow by that circle. So I can choose one of these 8 shapes. Let's make an arrow to let kids know they need to go on. You can just use the arrow as is, or you can change the color. So here I am going to make it kind of an aqua blue. Let's add a red border. Then here I've got a text box feature. So you just kind of grab your mouse and bring it down. You can't change the size of the font, like say I want size 14 font or whatever. So instead you just go with the style. So I want it to be a little bigger. I would go with title. If I want it to be the biggest, I would go with display. I can also change the color. So again, I've got these few colors. So let's make that green. and then I can change the alignment on that. The last option down here is the laser pointer option. So this is for when you are presenting. So you can use this in two ways. So one, I've just got this red dot for students to kind of follow what I'm pointing to if I'm sharing something. The other option is if I want to bring their attention, I want to make a mark on something, maybe circle it to bring their attention to it, but I don't want to permanently mark on it. This acts like disappearing ink. So if I go like this, you'll notice that it disappears. So it was enough to get their attention, but it did not permanently write on it. If you were going to instead be modeling, like here's how to do a math problem, like 4 plus 2, you would want to instead come up with the pen or marker and be writing, not with the laser pointer. But for presenting, bringing people's attention to something, that's a really neat feature. So then you can come over here and you can click Create a Frame to come to a new slide. So here you can continue, so you could add multiple math problems and have one math problem on each page, or maybe you divide it in half and 2 per page, and kids can go through and complete a few of them. So I can put my background here and change it around. So like here, I just chose some squares, which is going to be like graph paper. So then if my students, and they would take more care than I am, they could graph a line, and so they could show you, here's what this equation might look like. So for showing math work, this is ideal. But you could also use this for things like if you are having your students work on grammar sentences. So I've got this, and I want my students to circle the verb and underline the complete predicate. So circle my verb, underline the complete predicate. So here, my students can do this work. And yes, there are other ways I can do this online. I can make them type what is the verb. They can type the complete predicate. But those kinds of things end up taking significantly longer and become more frustrating. Whereas if I just put this on here and my students just circle and underline, they use their finger to do it. It's really quick, it's really easy, and they can go through and complete several in the time that it would take them to type their response. So for assignments that students would ordinarily write and it becomes cumbersome for them to then type it out or try to write it on paper and take a picture of the assignment, Jamboard is ideal. If it's something where you have a worksheet that students need to fill in specific answers, that's probably better for Google Slides. One of the parts of Jamboard that is not quite as good when students aren't showing their work. So for example, with Google Slides, I can lock things in the background so my students can't move them, can't delete them. So that way it's not accidentally they click on something wrong and now they just messed up their entire assignment. So here, let's say this was important to the assignment, but oops, the kid accidentally deleted it. Yes, if they know how to use these undo, redo arrows in the corner, which you can also use Control Y to redo, Control Z to undo, but not all of them are going to know to do that. Instead, they just deleted it. That was the diagram they needed to complete something, and now they're stuck. So Jamboard does not have the option to move things to the back of a worksheet, make it the background. Kids can't mess with it. If kids are going to be doing a lot of typing, this text box has very limited uses. You can't go in and change font size. It's not as good for long text. For quick labels like this, short sentences like this, it's great. But if they're writing something longer, Google Docs is going to be a better option. But if students need to show their work, use Jamboard. So students could come here and they could save this frame as an image if they wanted. You could download it as a PDF. You can share it just like you could with any other Google assignment. But really, one of the great things about this is just like with any other Google assignment, you can assign it directly through Canvas. So there's two ways to do that right now. So you could use the Google Docs Cloud assignment. So this is the old version. It's going to be phased out at the very beginning of the 2021-2022 school year. But it still works great and integrates very well into SpeedGrader. So a lot of teachers who really like SpeedGrader prefer that method. Then there is the Google Docs. So that's the Google Docs Cloud assignment, the original one. Then there's the new Google Assignments, which was just released to the public in September 2020. And that one, for people who really loved Google Classroom, it's great because you grade it just like you would for Google Classroom. But it's a little bit more cumbersome for grading and a few extra steps, especially for those who are used to the ease and the speed of SpeedGrader. So both are perfectly great options for getting those to students. It's really kind of that grading option that kind of helps you decide which one works better for you, at least at this point when both are still available.